My name is Sheyenne Cleveland, and my research project was on the effects of music tempo on heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, and or distance traveled. My question was, does music tempo have an effect on heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, and distance? Over the past few decades, there has been more and more research pertaining to music and exercise, and Georgis is one of the most profound researchers in this field, and he has done several studies that have focused on music preference while exercising. A few of his statistics have shown that people prefer high tempo and medium tempo music as opposed to the low music tempo. And Georgis, as well as other researchers, have come to the conclusion that there are 5 main effects that music can have on exercise, and I mostly focused on 2 of them in my research project, and they were dissociation and synchronization. Dissociation is just when pertaining to music, is when you focus on a given, say, music, instead of focusing on what you're actually doing. So when people are on the elliptical, they will be focusing more on the music rather than the work they are exerting. And then synchronization is when they start to match their pace to the beat of the music. All right. From that, I had 3 hypotheses. My first was when music tempo increases, heart rate will also increase. And there are some studies that show that even at rest, music tempo can have an effect on your heart rate. So I figured that since heart rate is increased when you exercise to begin with, this will heighten it even more. And then my second hypothesis was when music tempo increases, rate of perceived exertion will decrease. For those of you who don't know, rate of perceived exertion is just an individual's perception of the effort they are exerting or the work they are doing. And then my third hypothesis, my voice was a little shaky right there. When music tempo increases, distance will also be increased. And this kind of plays along with the synchronization and the dissociation effects that I mentioned. Whenever they start to increase their pace to match the beat of the music, they will more than likely increase their overall distance. All right. So I did a quasi-experimental research design, and I had 4 independent variables. I had no music, low tempo music, which was set at 80 to 90 beats per minute, medium tempo, which was 110 to 120 beats per minute, and then high tempo, which was 140 to 150 beats per minute. And then my dependent variables were obviously heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, and distance. For my study, I had 13 participants, and before they started, I had them sign informed consent forms as well as fill out a demographical survey. In the survey, they were asked to tell their age, their activity level per week, their gender, and their music preference between country and pop music. The results from that were I had ages between 19 and 22 years, an activity level of an average of 4 days per week, and my gender, it was pretty evenly distributed. I had 6 females and 7 males, and then 10 people preferred to listen to pop music, and 3 people preferred to listen to country music while exercising. And during the study, I put together some playlists based on pop and country and then the music tempos. That way everyone had the same playlist for their tempo. And then I had them get on the elliptical for 4 days. Each of those days were 20-minute periods. And I had them set their ellipticals to level 5. Every 5 minutes, I checked their heart rate and rate of perceived exertion. Heart rate was taken using the pulse oximeter, and then rate of perceived exertion was used. I used the Borg's 11-point scale, which was just a scale of 0 to 10, saying that nothing at all was going on at 0, and then at 10, they were working very, very hard, and they were exhausted. And then distance was calculated using the elliptical. I took the miles from the elliptical and then just converted that to meters using the conversion factor of 1,609.34 meters for every 1 mile. And then I took the means of all of the different tempi and compared them to the no music control. And I put that into the SPSS software and did a Pearson and Spearman correlation, and against the alpha priority level of 0.05, there showed no significant results. The closest I had was a 0.5, so compared to the 0.05, it's not significant, but that could just be because of my low sample size. The means, however, when just looking at the means, showed that there was a slight increase for heart rate and distance as you increase with tempo as compared to the no music. And then for rate of perceived exertion, there was a decrease with just music in general as compared to not having music. And here's a figure showing the heart rate overall. So I told you that I calculated it examined it every 5 minutes. And you can see that throughout the entire thing, they were fairly even. 10, it was a little less for the no music, but what I want you to focus on is the start to 5 minutes. There was a drastic increase in heart rate, and the reason I think that happened is because I did not allow them to have a warm-up. So their body was trying to adjust to the increase in activity that they were doing. The same goes for rate of perceived exertion. At the 5 minutes, they were still trying to adjust, so their rate of perceived exertion went from 0, not doing anything, to being on the elliptical and working harder. But the blue line shows the no music, which was above the others the entire time. So you can kind of see that rate of perceived exertion was a little lower with music than without. And then here are some of my delimitations and limitations. I went over a few of these whenever I was doing it, but I chose the elliptical because, well, I'm afraid of the treadmill, to be honest, but it's also good, like, it's better on your joints than being on the elliptical, and you don't have the repetitive slapping motion. And then I chose a pulse oximeter because I can't always get the elliptical to read my pulse, so I didn't want that to happen whenever I was actually doing my research project. The downside of using the pulse oximeter is it's not accurate if you have dark fingernail polish or if you're moving, which they were moving on the elliptical, so I would wait for it to balance out to get my reading. And then choosing the playlist was the delimitation. I set it for everybody, and I could tell when some people actually liked the music as compared to when they were just kind of moving to the music. They were a lot more enthused to work with the music they actually enjoyed, and their rate of perceived exertion at that point in time was lower, as well as their pace quickened because they were more excited. A limitation for this was distractions. Being in the gym, there were a ton of distractions. People were coming in and out, so it's hard for them to just focus on the music, especially with the no music control. I wanted them to purely tune everything out, which was difficult for a lot of people, and just focus on the wall, so I would have to remind them to focus on the wall. And then some of my observations, I did see synchronization. It was really cool. People, I could see if their song would pick up because they would increase their speed, and then if the song after that would decrease in tempo, they would slow down a little bit. So that was pretty interesting to watch. And then if I were furthering my research or to redo this, I would have the participants choose their own songs, because I think the results would end up being better because they would actually enjoy the music they were listening to. So that could have played a factor in that. And then I would also include a warm-up so there would not be that drastic increase of rate of perceived exertion and heart rates. And then why does it matter? Because people enjoy music, but mostly people can use this for competition, or if we want to motivate people during rehabs. During competition, we can't really listen to music while we are competing, but you'll see this a lot in endurance athletes. They will listen to specific tempo music that they want their pace to be, and it helps them become more efficient in their workout, and then whenever they get to the competition, they actually will have the pace that they were aiming for. Any questions?
It's kind of a comment, but I was just thinking about it, and I know when I work out, I listen to some like screamo, like hard rock, like stuff like that, and I also feel like the lyrics sometimes, if there's something that really gets me pumped, like I'm gonna break your face or something like that, like it gets me like hyped, and I can like tell that I'm just like, let's go, like I'm gonna go harder. I think it'd be like interesting to see if lyrics played any role in it as well.
Yeah, with the preference study that I was talking about earlier, it actually showed that there's motivational qualities to certain songs, and so they kind of played that in as a role in that study. So yeah, that's definitely a factor.
Did your participants actually know how long they were going for?
Yes. And that's why I only got 13 instead of 20.
Because I wonder if not telling them how long they were going for would make a difference in your data. Because I know, like, personally, when I work out, like, especially if I'm, like, running or something like that, that I pay attention to the clock and how long I've actually been on there, and I do interval running.
That was also one of my limitations that I saw. Whenever I first started it, I realized that pretty much after the first participant, I let them see their distance and everything, and I had to let everyone see it because I let the first person see it, but I really wanted to cover it. I didn't think of it until after the first person, but I could see sometimes they would try to beat their last time or something, so they could have skewed some results.
When you were choosing your music, you know how you have 80 to 90 beats for the low tempo. How did you like determine what songs? Like, how did you determine what songs had the beats?
To be honest, I put it in the computer on one site, and it gave me the tempo of the music, and it's supposed to check the beats per minute every like 2 weeks. So they're supposed to be fairly up to date. I just used consistent.
Two questions. One, did you consider videotaping them while they were doing this so you could show the change in tempo as the music changed?
No.
I just think that would be interesting
It would
to
be
see
cool.
when you were talking
But,
about it.
yeah.
I could kind of visualize it in my head.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. They would like slow down on some songs, and then they'd be like, yeah, at others.
And then second question, you said on the demographic information that you asked them about their activity level per week, and there was an average of about 4 days. Did you at all look at the correlation from like somebody who wasn't active at all compared to people who were pretty active?
Everyone was fairly even in the results. I had a few that only did like 2 days a week, but they were fairly close to everyone else.